The conference room felt smaller than usual. Martin Vale stood at the head of the table, his expensive suit perfectly pressed, his smile rehearsed. He cleared his throat and began talking about necessary cost-cutting initiatives. My stomach tightened. I'd worked at Vanguard Creative Group for 7 years, keeping projects on track, fixing problems nobody else wanted to touch. Then he said my name. Clara Hayes. My salary would be reduced by 30%, effective immediately. The room went silent. Nobody else's pay was touched. Just mine. Co-workers shifted uncomfortably in their seats, avoiding my eyes. Martin gave me that hollow smile of his. We all have to make sacrifices, Clara. I sat frozen, unable to process what had just happened. 7 years of loyalty, of late nights and weekend work. And this was my reward. That evening, I opened Slack to check messages. There it was. An internal memo. Company cruise celebration approved by CEO. My hands started shaking. The office buzzed with excitement the next morning. Everyone was talking about the cruise. Free tickets for the entire team. A week in the Caribbean. Luxury accommodations. Meanwhile, I was calculating how to pay my rent with 30% less income. Co-workers passed my desk, discussing their cruise plans like I wasn't even there. Nobody asked if I was okay. Nobody questioned why only my salary got cut during this supposed budget crisis. Martin walked by, coffee in hand, that smug expression on his face. He paused at my desk. "You'll thank me later when the company stays afloat," he said casually, then continued to his office. My jaw clenched. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to demand answers. Instead, I smiled and nodded. That afternoon, I overheard 2 people from HR whispering near the break room. I pressed myself against the wall, listening. "She was targeted because she refused him," one of them said. My blood ran cold. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind kept replaying moments from months ago. The company dinner where Martin had cornered me near the bar. His hand on my lower back. His suggestion that we discuss my career advancement somewhere private. I'd politely but firmly declined. Told him I preferred to keep things professional. His smile had vanished instantly. The next day, I was mysteriously removed from important client calls. Projects I'd been leading were reassigned without explanation. I thought it was coincidence. Now I understood. This wasn't about budget cuts. This was punishment. I opened my laptop and started digging through old emails. There had to be evidence somewhere. 2 hours later I found it. An email chain from 3 weeks ago. Martin's name right there, personally approving my pay reduction. Not the CFO. Not HR. Martin himself had targeted me. I took screenshots of everything. My hands trembled as I created a secure folder on my personal cloud drive. Martin's LinkedIn video appeared in my feed the next morning. I watched it with growing disgust. He stood in front of our office building, speaking passionately about integrity and leadership. "Great leaders make tough choices," he said, looking directly at the camera. "They sacrifice for the greater good. They put the company first, even when it's difficult." The comment section was full of praise. People called him inspiring, a role model, visionary. Felt sick. That afternoon, Jenna from accounting approached my desk. She was one of the few people who'd been kind to me since the announcement. She glanced around nervously, then slipped a flash drive into my hand. "You should see what he's hiding," she whispered. Before I could respond, she walked away quickly. I waited until everyone left for the day, then plugged the drive into my laptop. My heart pounded as files appeared on my screen. The flash drive contained expense reports going back 2 years. Martin had been using company funds for personal luxuries. Custom suits charged to the marketing budget. Spa visits labeled as client entertainment. Yacht parties disguised as team-building events. The amounts were staggering. Thousands of dollars every month. All approved by Martin himself since he controlled the expense system. I scrolled through receipt after receipt, my anger building with each one. Then I reached the final document. A deposit receipt for a Caribbean cruise package. $60,000. charged to the company account just 3 days after he cut my salary. The description read, Executive Retreat CEO plus guest. Not a company cruise. Not team building. A personal vacation for Martin and whoever he was bringing. Meanwhile, he'd told everyone we needed to tighten our belts. That we were facing financial difficulties. That sacrifices were necessary. I copied everything to my secure folder and returned the flash drive to Jenna the next morning with a grateful nod. Lunch in the cafeteria was torture. Martin sat at the center table, surrounded by senior managers, telling stories about the upcoming cruise. This is exactly what the team needs, he announced loudly. Real team building. Not just empty words. He gestured broadly, clearly enjoying the attention. I've worked hard to make this happen for everyone. I gripped my fork tightly. Team building. He actually called it team building while I was struggling to pay bills. Team building. I muttered under my breath. Or ego building. The woman next to me, Patricia from design, gave me a sympathetic look but said nothing. Nobody wanted to risk their own position. Martin's voice carried across the room. Some people just don't understand what it takes to run a successful company. His eyes flicked toward me briefly. The message was clear. Suddenly, he stood up and walked directly to my table. Everything all right, Clara? He asked, his tone friendly but his eyes cold. Absolutely fine, I replied, forcing a smile. He leaned closer. Watch yourself, Clara. Negativity spreads like a virus. We can't have that here. Then he walked away, leaving me shaking with suppressed rage. The staff meeting the following day was worse. Martin called me out in front of everyone. I've noticed some concerning behavior lately, he began, pacing at the front of the room. Low morale, gossiping, spreading negativity about company decisions. He stopped and looked directly at me. Clara, do you have something you'd like to share with the group? Every head turned toward me. Heat rushed to my face. No, I managed to say. Nothing to share. Because if you can't align with our company spirit, he continued, if you can't be a team player during difficult times, then perhaps this isn't the right environment for you. It was a threat. Clear as day. He was setting the stage to fire me if I caused trouble. I understand completely, I said, keeping my voice steady. Good, Martin replied with a satisfied smile. I'm glad we've cleared that up. As the meeting ended, my phone buzzed. An email from an unknown address. The subject line read, I have something that can bring him down. I waited until I got home to open the email. The sender identified herself as Vanessa, Martin's former executive assistant. She'd left the company 6 months ago, quietly and without explanation. Now I understood why. Her email was brief but powerful. I know what he did to you. He did the same to me. Have evidence. Call me. She included a phone number. Called immediately. Vanessa answered on the second ring. Her voice was calm but tired. Thank you for calling. I wasn't sure you would. What happened to you? Yes. She sighed deeply. The same thing. He made advances. I refused. Suddenly my work wasn't good enough. He made my life miserable until I quit. Why didn't you report him? I tried. HR told me there wasn't enough evidence. Martin's the CEO. He controls everything. I paused. But I kept records. Screenshots. Recordings. Everything. She sent me a folder titled Veil Records. Inside were dozens of files. Screenshots of inappropriate messages. Audio recordings of Martin berating employees. Complaints from staff that HR had buried. Financial documents showing hush payments to former employees. He ruins anyone who crosses him, Vanessa warned. Be careful, Clara. But if you're ready to fight back, I'll help you. I spent the weekend organizing everything. Vanessa's files. Jenna's expense reports. My own documentation of Martin's behavior. The evidence was overwhelming, but I needed a strategy. Reacting emotionally would only make me look unstable. I had to be smart about this. Calculated. I started backing up every company email I could access. Screenshots of messages, copies of expense ledgers, anything that might be useful. By Sunday night, I had assembled a comprehensive case. Monday morning, Martin sent a company-wide message. Mandatory attendance for cruise party next week. Looking forward to celebrating our success together. My phone buzzed with responses from coworkers. Excitement, gratitude. Nobody questioned the timing or the cost. Nobody except me. I replied to the group message with a simple thumbs-up emoji, then returned to my preparations. Vanessa had suggested I document everything in real time once we were on the cruise. He always gets careless when he thinks he's won, she told me. That's when he shows his true colors. Martin stopped at my desk on Tuesday afternoon. Clara, he said, his voice artificially warm. I want to personally invite you to the cruise. I know things have been difficult lately, but this could be your chance to rebuild trust with the leadership team. I looked up at him, forcing myself to smile. That's very kind of you, Martin. I'd be happy to attend. Excellent, he replied, clearly pleased with himself. This is exactly the attitude we need. Team players who understand that temporary sacrifices lead to greater success. After he walked away, Jenna passed my desk and whispered without stopping. You going? I nodded slightly. She gave me a quick thumbs up and continued walking. That evening I texted Vanessa. I'm going to the cruise. With a plan. Her response came immediately. Good. Record everything you can. He always slips up when he's comfortable. And Clara, don't let him see you coming. I smiled at my phone. Martin Vale had no idea what was about to hit him. The cruise ship was enormous and luxurious. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, staff catering to every whim. Martin stood on the main deck, welcoming everyone aboard like he owned the vessel. I kept my distance, observing. That first evening there was a cocktail party. Martin moved through the crowd, shaking hands, telling jokes, playing the perfect host. I positioned myself near a group of potential investors he'd invited. Martin's voice carried clearly. The key to success is knowing when to trim the fat, he said, laughing. Sometimes you have to make tough personnel decisions. Cut the dead weight. One of the investors nodded approvingly. Difficult but necessary. Exactly, Martin agreed. I just reduced one employee's salary significantly. She wasn't performing at the level we needed. Sometimes you have to send a message. My phone was recording in my pocket. Every word captured. Martin continued, emboldened by the drinks and the audience. The best part. She's actually here on the cruise. Still trying to prove herself. It's almost sad. The investors laughed. I walked away before I did something I'd regret, but the recording was safely stored in my cloud backup. By the third night, Martin was completely unguarded. The open bar had been flowing freely. I followed him and a senior executive onto the upper deck, staying in the shadows. My phone was recording again. This cruise cost 60 grand, Martin slurred slightly. 60 grand of company money. And everyone thinks it's for them. He laughed. The whole team building thing is perfect cover. Really, it's just a vacation for me and whoever I want to bring. The executive looked uncomfortable but said nothing. That employee I told you about. Clara, Martin continued. She actually begged me to reconsider the pay cut. Literally begged. I told her maybe if she was nicer to me, we could work something out. My stomach turned. He was lying completely. I'd never begged him for anything. You offered to reconsider? The executive asked. Hell no, Martin laughed. I just wanted to watch her squirm. She rejected me months ago. This is payback. I almost dropped my phone into the ocean but caught it just in time. My hands were shaking with rage, but I had what I needed. Martin Vale had just confessed everything. Back home after the cruise, Martin wasted no time showing his true nature. He promoted his new assistant, Amber, to a senior position. She was 26, blonde, and had joined the company 3 months ago with minimal experience. The announcement came via email. Pleased to promote Amber Collins to Senior Creative Director. Her dedication and innovative thinking exemplify our company values. I checked the financial records I'd been monitoring. Martin had taken Amber to expensive dinners at least twice a week for the past month, all charged to the company. She was clearly his new target, and she seemed willing to play along. That afternoon, another email arrived. This one from HR. Final warning, disciplinary action required. My heart sank as I opened it. The complaint accused me of insubordination, negative attitude, and failure to meet performance standards. Lies. All carefully documented by Martin to build a case for firing me. The meeting was scheduled for the next day. I forwarded the email to Vanessa immediately. Her response was quick. Don't panic. This is actually good. It shows he's getting desperate. Stick to the plan. The HR meeting was held in a small conference room. Martin sat outside, visible through the glass wall, that smug expression on his face. The HR manager, Leona Brooks, reviewed the complaints against me. These are serious accusations, Clara. Multiple reports of unprofessional behavior. May I see the reports? I asked calmly. She hesitated, then slid a thin folder across the table. I scanned the documents. All the complaints came from Martin directly or from managers he controlled. No specific examples. No concrete evidence. Just vague accusations. This seems unusual, I said carefully. I've been here 7 years with excellent performance reviews. Suddenly, right after my salary was cut, I'm unprofessional. Leona's expression shifted slightly. I'm required to follow protocol, she said. But... She glanced toward the glass wall where Martin was watching, then back at me. She wrote something on a piece of paper and slid it across the table. Meeting concluded. Official warning issued. You're dismissed. I took the paper. On it she'd written, meet me after hours. Can help. 7 p.m. coffee shop on Main. I nodded slightly and left the room, walking past Martin without looking at him. Leona was already at the coffee shop when I arrived. She looked nervous, constantly glancing at the door. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down. I need to be careful. Martin has eyes everywhere. What's going on? Yes. She took a deep breath. I've been documenting Martin's misconduct for over a year. The harassment, the financial improprieties, the retaliation against employees who reject his advances. Why haven't you reported it? I did. To the board. They ignored it. Martin brings in major clients. He's charming. They don't want to believe he's corrupt. She pulled out a tablet and showed me files. Dozens of complaints she'd collected. Photos of expense reports. Recordings of meetings where Martin had threatened employees. I can't do this alone, Leona said. But together with your evidence and mine, we might have enough to force the board to act. I showed her what I'd gathered. The cruise recordings. Vanessa's files. The expense reports from Jenna. Leona's eyes widened. This is solid. But we need something visual. Something the board can't ignore or explain away. I invited Martin to a client dinner 3 days later. I want to apologize for my attitude, I told him in his office. You were right. I need to be more of a team player. His expression shifted to satisfaction. I'm glad you're finally seeing reason, Clara. This is the kind of growth I like to see. I'd like to discuss how I can improve my standing with the company, I continued. Perhaps over dinner. I'm meeting with a potential client Thursday night. Your insights would be valuable. Martin practically beamed. He loved being seen as a mentor, especially when it meant controlling someone who'd rejected him. I'd be happy to join you, he said. Thursday evening we met at an upscale restaurant. I'd positioned my phone on the table, camera facing Martin, disguised as if I was just keeping it nearby. The potential client was actually a friend of Vanessa's, someone who knew the plan and was willing to help. Martin spent the first hour telling stories about his success, his business wisdom, his leadership style. Then he started drinking more heavily. The secret to running a company, he told my friend, is controlling the narrative. You make people think you're doing them a favor even when you're not. Interesting approach, my friend said, encouraging him. Like that budget crisis I announced, Martin continued. There was no real crisis. I just needed to finesse some funds for personal projects. Cut one person's salary, and suddenly I have flexibility in the budget. He grinned. The cruise. That was supposed to be just for my top 5 friends. But calling it team building made it tax deductible. I kept my expression neutral while my phone captured every word. I spent Friday compiling everything into one comprehensive folder. Emails, voice recordings, video from the dinner, expense reports, complaint records from Leona, testimonies from Vanessa and 3 other former employees who'd contacted me after hearing I was building a case. The evidence was undeniable. Saturday morning, I created anonymous email addresses and sent the complete folder to every member of the board of directors. The subject line was simple: financial misconduct and harassment by CEO Martin Vale, evidence attached. By Sunday afternoon, my phone was exploding with messages. The company group chat was in chaos. Urgent all hands meeting Monday 9 a.m. The message came from the board chairman himself, not Martin. Jenna texted me privately. Did you do this? I didn't respond. Leona called. The board received something. They're furious. Emergency session tonight. I allowed myself a small smile. Martin Vale's carefully constructed empire was about to collapse, and he had no idea it was coming. Monday morning the conference room was packed. Every employee crammed inside, whispering anxiously. Martin strutted in at exactly 9 o'clock, confident as always. Good morning everyone, he began. I understand there's been some confusion this weekend. The projector screen suddenly lit up behind him. His own voice filled the room. There was no real crisis. I just needed to finesse some funds for personal projects. Martin spun around, his face draining of color. The video continued. Him bragging about the cruise. Him admitting he cut my salary as revenge. Him laughing about manipulating the company budget. The room was completely silent except for his recorded voice. When it finished, the board chairman stood. Mr. Vale, we need to speak with you immediately. In private. This is ridiculous, Martin sputtered. Someone edited that. It's taken out of context. We've reviewed all the evidence, the chairman interrupted coldly, including financial records, expense reports, and testimonies from multiple employees. I stood up slowly. Every eye turned to me. You called this a budget crisis, I said, my voice steady. I pulled out a printed copy of the cruise expense report and held it up. You cut my salary by 30%. Then you spent $60,000 on a personal vacation and called it team building. Martin's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. His face had turned red, then pale, then red again. Security, the chairman said quietly. 2 security guards entered the room. Mr. Vale, you're suspended effective immediately pending a full investigation. Please surrender your company badge and access cards. Martin tried to maintain dignity as security escorted him out, but his hands were shaking. He stopped near my desk and turned back to look at me. You'll regret this, he whispered. I met his eyes calmly. No, I really won't. After he was gone, the room erupted in shocked conversation. The chairman asked me to stay behind. Ms. Hayes, he said once we were alone with Leona and the other board members. We owe you an apology. This should never have happened. Multiple people tried to report his behavior, I replied. Why was nothing done earlier? The board members looked uncomfortable. Finally, one of them spoke. Martin brought in significant revenue. We dismissed the complaints as personality conflicts. We were wrong. Over the next 2 hours, they interviewed me thoroughly. They reviewed every piece of evidence. By the end, they'd made several decisions. Martin was terminated immediately. A full financial audit would be conducted. My salary would be restored with back pay for the time it had been reduced. And they offered me Martin's position temporarily while they searched for a new CEO. I declined politely. I appreciate the offer, but I don't want Martin's job. I want accountability. The company hired an external firm to audit everything. What they found was worse than anyone expected. Martin had been embezzling funds for 3 years. Fake vendors, inflated expenses, personal purchases disguised as business costs. The total exceeded $300,000. Criminal charges were filed. Leona and Jenna were praised for their courage in helping expose the fraud. Vanessa was offered her job back with a promotion, though she declined. The story leaked to the press within days. Tech CEO fired after employee exposes elaborate fraud scheme. My name was in the articles. Some people praised me as a whistleblower. And integrity. We'd like to discuss a position with us. I agreed to an interview. Others accused me of being vindictive, of ruining a man's career over a personal grudge. The support far outweighed the criticism, but the attention was overwhelming. LinkedIn messages flooded my inbox. Job offers, interview requests, people sharing their own stories of workplace corruption. One message stood out. It was from a recruiter at a major consulting firm. We're impressed by your courage and integrity. We'd like to discuss a position with us. I agreed to an interview. The consulting firm offered me a role as their ethics and compliance director. The salary was nearly double what I'd been making at Vanguard. Accepted. My first day felt like stepping into a completely different world. Professional, respectful, fair. But I couldn't stop thinking about all the people still trapped in situations like I'd been in. That evening, I received an email from Martin's lawyer. My client wishes to settle this matter privately. He's prepared to offer compensation in exchange for your silence moving forward. The offer was $50,000 and a non-disclosure agreement. I laughed out loud. Martin had cut my salary by more than that over the course of a year. He'd humiliated me publicly. He tried to destroy my career. And now he wanted me to be quiet about it for $50,000. I forwarded the email to my own attorney with a simple note. Decline. No settlement. No NDA. 2 days later my lawyer called. Martin's attorney is upset. They're threatening to sue for defamation. Let them try, I said. Everything I've said is documented and true. The mediation meeting happened 3 weeks later. Martin sat across the table from me, looking nothing like the confident CEO who'd cut my salary in that conference room. He was thinner, exhausted, defeated. His lawyer did most of the talking. My client acknowledges mistakes were made. He's willing to increase the settlement offer significantly. $100,000. Full confidentiality on both sides. I looked directly at Martin. He couldn't meet my eyes. You cut my salary by that much, I said quietly. You tried to destroy my reputation. You harassed multiple women and paid them to stay quiet. Clara, his lawyer began. Ms. Hayes, I corrected. And I'm not interested in your money. I slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a letter I'd written, agreeing to make no further public statements about Martin personally, but refusing any payment and refusing to sign an NDA. I'll stop talking about you, I said. But I won't be silenced about what happened. Other people need to know that speaking up is possible. Martin finally looked at me. I lost everything because of you. No, I replied firmly. You lost everything because of your own choices. I just refuse to let you destroy me too. His lawyer took the letter. We'll review this and get back to you. You do that, I said, standing up. But this is my final offer. Take it or leave it. I walked out without looking back. 6 months passed. Martin was convicted of fraud and embezzlement. He received a 3-year sentence and was permanently banned from holding executive positions. His LinkedIn page disappeared. His reputation was destroyed. I felt no joy in his downfall, but I felt no guilt either. Justice wasn't revenge. It was accountability. Meanwhile, my career flourished. The consulting firm promoted me to senior director. I specialized in helping companies develop ethical workplace cultures and proper reporting systems for misconduct. I gave talks at conferences about speaking up against corruption. People called me brave, but I didn't feel brave. I felt like someone who'd simply refused to accept injustice. Vanguard reached out through their new CEO. We'd like to offer you the position of project director. We've implemented significant changes. We'd be honored to have you back. The offer was generous. The position was prestigious. But I'd moved beyond Vanguard. Thank you for the offer, I wrote back. But I'm exactly where I need to be. I started my own small consulting agency on the side, working evenings and weekends. Hayes Integrity Solutions. I helped employees document workplace misconduct. I connected them with lawyers and resources. I taught them how to protect themselves while speaking up. The work was fulfilling in ways my corporate job never could be. One evening I received an email from someone named Ashley. I'm going through something similar to what you experienced. My boss is retaliating against me. I don't know what to do. Can you help? I scheduled a call with her immediately. As she told her story, I heard echoes of my own experience. The harassment, the retaliation, the fear of speaking up. You're not alone, I told her. And you're not powerless. Let me show you what documentation you need. Over the next 3 months, I helped Ashley build her case. She eventually reported her boss to her company's board. He was fired. She kept her job. Thank you, she told me after it was over. You gave me courage. No, I replied. You already had the courage. I just showed you how to use it. A year after everything happened, I was sitting in my home office, reviewing a new client's case. Through the window, the sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. My phone buzzed. A message from Jenna. Did you see? Martin's trying to start a consulting business. Executive leadership training. I smiled and shook my head. Some people never learned. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I'd built something meaningful from the worst experience of my professional life. I'd helped dozens of people find their voices and fight back against workplace injustice. I'd proven that speaking up was worth the risk. Revenge, I'd learned, wasn't about destroying someone. It was about refusing to let them destroy you. It was about taking back your power and using it to help others do the same. Martin Vale had tried to break me with that salary cut. Instead, he'd freed me to become someone stronger. Someone who wouldn't stay silent. Someone who knew her worth. I took a sip of coffee and turned back to my computer. There was work to do. People to help. Justice to pursue. And for the first time in years, I was exactly where I belonged.